Alright, so for this next assignment, we're going to look at some additive and subtractive methods of applying graphite to get a full range of values and enhance your composition. This is the picture I'll be working from, and before we get started in that too much, I want to show you this terrifying picture of Howard the Duck as envisioned by Stan Winston. Unfortunately, he did not look like that in the movie by the time it came out, but let this be stuck forever in our memories. So, the way that we're going to do this project is it's not going to take as long as some of the other projects that we've done. We're only going to be working on this 1 week. So I want you to choose something. It does not have to be from a photograph, but it should have a full range of light and dark values. Your first step is going to be to draw it on your paper. Now, you don't have to draw it dark. You don't have to like do any shading. I did a little bit just to kind of help with some areas because that's how I figure out some of my composition sometimes. Um, but you don't want to get too bogged down in your shading. And I'm just going to highlight a few more areas of this because after you have your wonderful drawing that you're going to shade, we're going to cover it up. So, what you can do is you can use a B pencil or a regular pencil or a chunk of graphite. Now, this is just compressed graphite. You can use a B pencil. It will take a little bit longer. You're just going to be putting a mid-tone down on your entire sheet of paper. But see, this is why you want to make sure that that your lines are dark enough. You don't want to like press them in because you don't want them to get stuck there. But you want to make sure that your lines are going to be dark enough that they're going to show through after you put this mid-tone down. So I have this graphite stick, which is going to help me do this a little bit faster, which will be better for the video so that you don't have to just sit and watch. I'm going to try to get a nice even coat over my picture. And then after I get a good coat, I'm going to take a paper towel and go over my picture. Now, you don't want to work too much detail in there because if you can tell, well, I don't have a ton of detail left in my picture, but I do have enough to work from. But kind of let that be a lesson that you may want to draw a little bit darker than I did. So, at this point, you're going to get your picture and you're going to start adding in those values. Let me get mine pulled up. Okay. So, whenever we're talking about additive or like adding, um, when we're talking about graphite, we're just talking about literally, and you might want to get a paper towel or something for your hand so you don't smear even farther. We're going to be adding more graphite where it's darker. And for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to go with the stick because it's going to go faster. You want to work on some best practices that we didn't necessarily go over. You want to try to make sure that you're going one direction while you shade. It's going to help your work be smoother. This is one of the darker areas of his mouth, so I'm going to go ahead and start working that in. And then his bill is pretty dark too. I'm just kind of doing all this with pressure. I'm kind of seeing my pencil marks. If you make your pencil marks too dark, then you're going to kind of get bogged down where you're going to have those little indentions in your paper. But that's all right. And that just shows you maybe don't do like what I did. Now, for any of you that are fortunate or unfortunate enough to have seen the Howard the Duck movie, which is terrible and awesome, you'll know that he did not look like this in the final cut of the movie. But this is like a weird 3D version of what he would have looked like from the original comics. Um, there was a lot of litigation with Disney because he looked like a certain duck character um, from Disney, and they were not too fond of that. And the ironic thing is now they just own everything. So now Howard is owned by Disney. Let's see. So as I've added some of these in, I'm going to go back in with my blender. I'm going to try to blend some of this together. Okay, so now we've been adding some of these lovely values. Now we get to talk about subtractive methods. Now, some of you have already worked with this on a little bit on the last project, but subtractive means you use an eraser. So I've got my eraser and I'm going to start pulling out those highlights. Whenever you are shading, you want to try to make sure that you're minimizing how much white space you leave, because the less white space you leave, the more complete the drawing looks. And now that we've gotten a little bit of shading under our belts, we can really start trying to look at how can we, um, enhance our shading even more. So now in my picture, there is a lot of white, and he's kind of like fading into the background. So I'm going to at least have some of that, because like on his sleeve, we see a lot of the folds, but other than that, it is just sort of getting lost in the background. So, at that point, you can kind of fade it back out. You can use your blender. I'm going to use the other side so that it's a little bit cleaner. And kind of keep working on those areas. Now, one life hack that I have come across in my years of shading is how you can manipulate a click eraser, which is one of these guys that are, yeah, they're super fun to play with because they click, but you can also use them in a pencil sharpener. Hey, long wait, but pretty worth it, because look at that. Now we have an eraser that is as thin as a pencil. So now we can kind of work in some more of those finer details. Now you can use these pink erasers in a similar manner. With the edges. And it's really just about trying to take advantage of every tool that we have at your disposal right now. So erasers, shading pencils. Don't have a ton of the compressed charcoal sticks, but if you are in class, probably at least have enough for you to go over your paper. But if you don't, it's probably going to be a little bit better for you in the long run because you'll be able to kind of see where your image is getting drowned out in the background. So we got his funny little hat. I'm going to lighten up his eyes a little bit more. But yeah, the more, which I'm going to go ahead and just pull out some of these highlighted areas because that'll make really good contrast where we have like that dark and that light. But other than that, you want to try to minimize how much you're erasing, or not necessarily how much you're erasing, but you don't want it to ever get stark white. So like at this point, this is where I'm going to stop for the demo because I know 15 minutes is a long time. But this kind of gives you like a good overview of how you can get set up and kind of add these different values, subtract, and try to get these nice areas where it is dark against white and kind of use any material that you can to get those values in.